Hello everyone, welcome to Zooming in China. I'm Simone Gao. CNN reported that the US intelligence community is still divided over the two theories of the SARS COVID-2 origin, and that the 90-day report is not likely to reveal earth-shattering information. Why is that? The Biden administration has predicted that science, not intelligence, would be the key to discovering the origin of the virus. What does that mean? Also, the US intelligence community has obtained a large amount of bats and rats virus sample data from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Would that be the silver bullet of this probe? I had these discussions with Dr. Sean Lin, former lab director of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. This is part one of our interview. Thank you, Dr. Lin, for joining Zooming in China today.
Thank you, Simone. I'm glad to join you.
So regarding Biden administration's 90-day report, the COVID origin report, CNN reports that after 3 months of poring over data and raw intelligence, the intelligence community is still divided over two theories. One suggesting that the virus originated from a lab in Wuhan, and the other suggesting that it jumped naturally to humans from animals. The sources said the report as it stands right now contains nothing too earth-shattering. So my question is, regarding the natural origin theory, as far as I know, they haven't found the intermediate host between bats and humans. And that is a critical piece of evidence that will prove that the virus has a natural origin. So without that, how can part of the intelligence community be sure that this virus started in nature?
So definitely, the current evidence showing that there's only one virus isolate has been identified in bat. That's RATG13 by Dr. Sean Lin's group, showing 96.2% homology with the SARS COVID-2 virus. But that virus still have a long gap in the past evolution to become SARS COVID-2. So you definitely need an intermediate animal host in order to show that this virus is natural origin. But right now, even though there are samples being identified from pangolins and other animals, having virus samples similar to RATG13, but they are also far away from SARS COVID-2. So we don't have any intermediate animal hosts being identified. And China say they have screened hundreds of thousands of animal samples in Wuhan and in other provinces as well, but no sample showing positive. So no animal sample can be identified as an intermediate animal host. So it's the biggest gap in the series of natural origin. And this part, even Chinese government don't deny it, because right now the Chinese government narrative has been pushing the international society to accept that the origin may be a lab leak from United States military or transmission through frozen food, right? Even the Chinese government don't believe that the virus might be natural origin right now. So I don't think the United States intelligence community can identify any virus strain that have higher homology to the SARS COVID-2.
Yeah, that's why people wonder, how can they make such a conclusion that the virus is actually from nature? But another question I have is, do you agree with CNN that this 90-day report will not have groundbreaking discoveries?
Definitely, I think it's very difficult for any groundbreaking evidence being discovered through this kind of intelligence committee's efforts, because timing-wise, it's too late. The Chinese government have plenty of time from last year to shift through their animal samples, human samples, virology testing results from different resources. And they have been able to probably clean the data, change the data, and they rejected international collaborations on the investigations, right? So it's too late to get very strong evidence directly from Chinese government. And also, even WHO's investigation team cannot get any raw sample data, raw data analysis from Chinese government. So I think the United States intelligence can only rely on maybe insider information, satellite images, and other circumstantial evidence to suggest that the virus may not come from the natural origin, or may not come from the frozen food, or maybe a potential lab leak. So definitely we need to keep in mind this is an intelligence probe, not a scientific study. This is not a scientific study that can identify a virus origin, because other viruses like HIV and SARS, for decades we don't know what the true origin of the virus. We don't think 90 days can do the magic.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You said this is not a scientific probe, it's an intelligence work. And, CNN reports that the Biden administration said because we lack of a windfall of new information, they don't expect to uncover a smoking gun like intercepted communications, for example, that would offer definitive proof for either theory. So the Biden administration's 90-day push is predicted on expectations that science, not intelligence, will be the key. I mean, you just said the opposite. What is your take on this?
Yes, I think the issue here is to investigate how the virus outbreak in Wuhan, right? It's the origin of the outbreak. And so this is epidemiology and public health questions, not the virology question regarding how the virus originated in animal species and how did it went through zoonotic transmission to become infectious to human being, not this kind of scientific question. And so for origin of the outbreak, so there are so many different scenarios, right? So definitely international society have the right to investigate whether this was a potential lab leak from Wuhan in China. And that's why I believe it's more critical to for the intelligence community to be transparent what kind of information they have collected. So for example, several months ago, there are so many reports talking about potential insiders defected from Chinese government, right? So those insider news probably will provide direct evidence regarding any potential gain of function research, any lab engineering of dangerous viruses, and any cover-up of the true patient zero, or when exactly did the outbreak started, right? So it could be earlier than December 2019. So these are very important information that the international society demand a clear answer on it. So this is regarding about the origin of the outbreak, and that's why I believe it's a question for intelligence community, not a scientific question.
Not a scientific question. But last week, CNN also reported that the intelligence community, they obtained a trove of genetic data drawn from virus samples at the Wuhan lab. Some officials believe this could have been the source of the outbreak. What do you think of this batch of data? Is it likely to contain the groundbreaking information that will tell us the origin of the virus?
Well, from the CNN report, it's clear that the database is collected. It was identified through some intelligence community efforts, maybe a cloud copy of previous database. So this suggesting all the data in this resource might not be of top secrecy inside the Chinese government. If this is a database related to the collaboration between military projects with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, I don't think it will be a database that previously open to scientists inside China and outside China. Even the Chinese government claimed that the database was took offline on September 12, 2019 because of cyber attack. But if it was a public sharing database, then after you resolving the cyber attack issues, you should bring back the database to the public, right? So Chinese government didn't do that for 18 months. So I don't think this was related to a cyber attack. So it may have some information related to gain-of-function studies inside the Wuhan Institute of Virology, but at the same time, and I don't think they have very, very sensitive information, maybe related to military projects, maybe design bioweapon programs. Those kind of information you probably won't see in this kind of database. So that's why I believe there won't be any earth-shattering evidence coming from this database.
Right, right. What you just said is very interesting. You said, the evidence, the data that's related to the military project won't be revealed, won't be even put on the website online. So this batch of data wouldn't contain information of that. So because of that, it won't tell us the origin of the virus. So your assumption is, the data that related to the military project is the key. And are you saying the origin of the virus is definitely related to this military program?
I only emphasizing the Chinese government is developing bioweapon programs, and there are many military units, and also have a lot of collaborations through military civil fusion projects, working with many universities, research institutes like Wuhan Institute of Virology inside China. So some of the projects probably related to the bioweapon programs. That's for sure, because Chinese government clearly has strategies, decisions in developing more bioweapon programs, and this can be confirmed by many of the military generals' books and writings, even in the military universities. So Chinese government is working on bioweapons, but of course we don't know exactly whether SARS COVID-2 was directly related or directly an outcome of a military bioweapon program. But it's likely to be a product of gain-of-function studies. So people have been questioning about the role of Wuhan Institute of Virology in this part. Of course, right now we don't have direct evidence, but there are circumstantial evidence suggesting a lab leak from Wuhan Institute of Virology. And you can see the report from the Republican committees, the China Task Force in the United States House, Congress. So in this way, if the international society can identify some gain-of-function studies that's related to SARS COVID-2, of course, it make the whole world clear how severe the situation it is, how badly the Chinese government covered up these crime in developing a bioweapon program that harmed society, harmed the whole world.
Okay. So can you just elaborate a little bit more about the nature of this batch of data? So according to the report, the data contains the genome sequencing of the virus samples, and also supposedly the circumstantial and background information, such as data entry, background of the sample, like where they're collected, the nature of the virus, and stuff like that is equally important. But you are saying even with that, it's not enough to reveal, probably not enough to reveal the nature of the origin. Can you explain a little bit more?
So right now it's very clear that the Wuhan Institute of Virology has the capacity to engineer recombinant coronavirus through reverse genetics, and their technology has matured so that the engineering, the editing trace can be completely covered up or erased through the recombinant technology. So basically, that's saying you can engineer a recombinant virus without any evidence, without any trace left in the engineering process. So from the outcome, from end product, from the genome sequencing, you cannot tell whether this virus was engineered or was actually isolated. And so that's why it's very difficult.
Right. So the genome sequencing is not enough. What about the other background information, such as the type of the virus, where they're collected? What other information would they register when they do this kind of data entry?
Yeah, so I think since Chinese government took this database offline, so I think they do contain certain level of sensitive information. So these are probably related to the contextual information regarding the samples, where they collect the samples, or when did they collect the sample, where they where did they conduct the research work, and what kind of work is it gain of function study? Is it related to reverse engineering, and what kind of animals those samples were collected? So there may be some sensitive information regarding the institute doing gain of function studies, testing whether the virus have gaining capability to infect human beings, or maybe even with higher transmissibility or even higher pathogenicities. So that may be related to that. So I think Chinese government is quite clear that some of the studies is against medical ethics. And if it's remotely related to a military project, of course, it becomes even more sensitive. So I think the contextual information can provide additional insight in terms of the scale, the scope of the gain of function study that been conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Mm-hmm. But it's not enough to draw a definitive conclusion that this virus is from, nature or it's lab made. Is that right?
Yes. And I think the most convincing evidence probably come from a defector inside. Anyone who can bring up a lab note or a project design or a procedural documents showing that the gain of function study was conducted in the lab at what times, and also what kind of engineering they did to the virus, any testing results, raw data. So I think the insider information will be those most powerful information that the intelligence community can collect. And I hope the United States intelligence community can reveal to the public what kind of information that the defector from China has brought up. And that will be more eye-opening than any other generic intelligence probe or scientific analysis.
That's it for today. As you know, we released a documentary movie on the Clink Network last week. It is part 2 of a documentary series called The American Dream Takes on China, Inc. that tells the story of former Undersecretary of State Keith Krach leading a group of Silicon Valley veterans beating the CCP in the economic battlefield. We first published it on our membership website. Now it's available on our YouTube channels, so be sure to check it out. And if you like our production, please sign up for our membership website or donate to us. Our website is zoomingin.tv. Thanks for watching. I'm Simon Gao, and I'll see you next time.